Everyone's well, Baruch Hashem. So we're going to study now Likutei Hilchot Pikadon Dalid, and we'll begin with paragraph Chaf Al. V'zeh bechinat para aduma, shenismecha lemachloket Korach. So what's the connection between Korach of last parsha and the para aduma here in Chukas? And he quotes a psikta. Lama nismecha parshas para achar machlokes Korach. And the psikta says that hulo yoda chok para aduma, that Korach did not acknowledge or comprehend that statute which is called para aduma. Shetia kapara gedol al Yisrael. What's the connection between Korach and the chok of para aduma? Ki para aduma masel bachutz. What's very unique about para aduma, and there's only one other possible analogy, is that it's brought outside the Beis Hamikdash. Ve'al kain, hi mitaheres mitumas mes. It has the power to purify from the most severe of all tumas, of all categories of contamination, namely tumas mes. Why? Because it's brought bachutz. Ki hames mitame b'tuma chamura mi'od. Right, if you come in contact with a dead corpse, then you contract what's called an avatuma. So this is a very severe tuma. And why is it so severe? And the answer to this mystery lies in Misa, in death itself. Man is a hybrid made up of two parts. He has the part which is pnimius, and that's the essential neshama, the spiritual infinite part of man, and chitzonius, and the external physical body. Misa represents the separation between the two, cutting the cord, so to speak, that connects the pnimius with the chitzonius. Now, what happens is, when you take out the pnimius and the neshama is separated from the body, and the body is now pure chitzonius in the most extreme way. And that's where we have the power of the chitzonim. The chitzonim are those forces that work against purity and try to bring us down. He calls them achizas hachitzonim. The chitzonim, those forces get a hold of the corpse. And that's called sitra de masavta, something to do with the death and the tumah that's involved with removing the pnimius and being left with the chitzonius. And therefore, since the para aduma is maser b'chutz, it's totally outside the Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash here represents the pnimius, and outside the Beis Hamikdash represents the chitzonius. And the para aduma belongs to the world of Tara in chitzonius. It therefore has the power to be mitayer even the most chomer of all tumas, namely tumas mes. Because ikar Tara al yidei para aduma shemaser b'chutz dafka. Imitaheres kol hamakomos hachitzonim umegareshes achizasam misham. There's an achiza of the chitzonim, and that is removed by the para aduma. Achesh koach l'tayr mitumas mes. When we, through the para aduma, we detonate, if I could use that word, we neutralize the achiza of the chitzonim. We could be mitayer the heart, the most harsh and severe tumah, namely tumas mes. The alkein beves mitzvahs para dumihi plia gedola, to conquer death, to be mitayr from the most severe, the highest level of tumah, which is tumas mes. And in fact, the Torah says, Zos chukas ha-Torah. That's how we introduce the paraduma. It's called a chok. And the Gemara says in the name of Chazal that chukah chakakti vein l'cha rishus laharach. It's a pure chok. It's a magical entity of Tara that we can't understand, we can't fathom. It's incomprehensible. Regarding this paraduma, Shlomo Melech declares in Koheles, Amarti echma v'rechoka mimeni. I thought perhaps I could understand the paraduma, but it's way beyond my comprehension. Ki be'emes, inyan zel kasher chitzonius al pnumius. In order to achieve Tara, because the chitzonim are living and feeding off the separation between the chitzonius and the pnimius. So now, in order to achieve Tara and defeat the power of the chitzonim and connect, we need to connect the chitzonim and the pnimius. And that's something, almost a life-giving force that's in the hands of the paraduma. And this paraduma, which connects the pnimius with the chitzonis, becomes now paradigmic of our avodah. What is the challenge that we face? Listakel b'chol davar al haseichel ha'emes sheyesh bo. When you look at a physical object in this world, what you see is chitzonius, not pnimius. And any pnimius in the physical object is behelem benistar, it's hidden behind the chitzonius. Our job, our responsibility is to use what's called a seichel ha'emes. It's a penetrating perspective or a way of getting beyond that which is chitzonius and is concealing the real truth and get to the real truth. To see the truth in every object, in every encounter, in every experience. That's called the seichel emes. To reveal the truth, to reveal divinity, to reveal the godliness. L'karev kol davar l'Hashem yisparach. To bring every physical object closer and closer to Hashem, and making a chitzonius into pnimius, or shall we say, integrating pnimius into chitzonius. How do you imagine such a thing? It's beyond our comprehension. The only way we could go about relating and encountering every physical object and penetrating into the pnimius, so that we make a chibur, a connection between pnimius and chitzonis, is only through the Torah. The Torah will tell us how to do this. And now we're able to defeat those chitzonis, those yetzaras. Ashal yoda machniim, we subjugate the yetzara, magbirim yetzar tov, we strengthen the yetzar tov so it could overcome and defeat the yetzara. Shal yidei zeh miskaber bechinas malchus de kedusha. There's something called malchus de kedusha, which is the bechin of tzimtzum, which is literally translated as contraction. So that through this process of malchus de kedusha, of tzimtzum, we can achieve the knowledge of God. What he calls the seichel ha'emes. So in every encounter, in every experience with an object in this physical world, we are challenged to reveal the Pnimius and connect it to the Chitzonius. And we can only do so through the Torah itself, by fulfilling the Torah. The Torah will allow us to reach our ultimate goal of connecting the Pnimius with the Chitzonius. But now we have Esav. Esav is interested in his own taivos. He's not a very refined personality, to understate it. The Kol Misha B'Shaber Taivos Libo. A Jew is called upon to overcome and again neutralize those taivos which represent Esav, and to become a Jew. And he's zocher to the seichel ha'emes. Imagine, my friends, if at every single time we had an encounter, we had an object, we look at this sefer, we look at this table, we look at this chair, and every time we have a penetrating insight into the seichel ha'emes, into the elokus, the divinity that inheres in every object. Wow, that would be amazing. But first, before we can even dream about reaching the Seichel Ha'amiti, first we have to cleanse ourselves of all the dross and all the contamination. And the Taivos Libo. Umisha Meshaber Taivos Libo, we get to the point where we've cleansed ourselves and we've uplifted ourselves to a Zach V'Noki state. Then, when we're zocher to the seichel of Amiti, the seichel of Hashem, then tzarich lizor sheyeh lo tzimtzum b'sichlo, make sure he's got bounds. Shelo yaros hagvul l'stakel b'ma she'ein lo reshus. So even when man reaches the level of shviras taivos libo, and at that point he is able to receive and connect to the seichel amiti, but even so there's a certain limitation, and he cannot try to break through that limitation and go beyond. Imagine a person who overcame the Yetzer Hara, the Taivos Libo, and even he is not capable of reaching the Seichel Amiti to the point in which he really embraces and understands the Almighty. He can't do so. How much more so someone who did not yet clean himself and purify himself from the Taivos Libo? Is kolshkein misha v'shuka adayim betavos libo tetzarich bevadei litzamtzem sichlo shelo yaharos leida yosem me'aroylo kefi madrigoso. There's a limit to how much you can understand. And if you don't appreciate that limit and you try to go beyond that limit, then you run the risk of laros, of destroying. When you finally reach that level, that boundary beyond which you cannot comprehend, once you acknowledge that, now you have the Seichel Amiti with Emunah, with faith, because you can't reach higher, you can't understand more. So you have to accept it on faith. He klal Torah. Everything in the Torah requires that emunah. Moshe Kasuv, as it says in Film Kuf Yutes, Kol Mitzvosecha Emuna. What does it mean, Kol Mitzvosecha Emuna? All of your mitzvos are Emuna, as if to say that all the Tariq mitzvahs boil down to one mitzvah, that's a mitzvah of faith in God. Hainu, shetzrichem lisnagig b'chol dover al pi Torah kedosha, ukshemistakel b'ezed dover yeda v'yamin b'emunah shlemet shebevada yesh b'zeh dover seichel gadol. Because he is so committed to Torah and mitzvahs, when he looks at something, whatever that physical object might be, he is now going to use his emunah, his faith in God. Shebevadai zeh hadovar, this object, this table, this chair, this book, is a seichel hagadol. And it's such a seichel hagadol, everything that was created, everything that exists in this world is a reflection of divinity. If he comprehends the seichel hagadol in each particular object, he can come to be makir gedulas habora yisparet, to recognize the greatness of the infinite God, who's karev al yidei zel Hashem, to get closer to Hashem. V'im yizke leida ulahavin, but is a seichel hanogea lavodas Hashem yisparach mato. Maybe he'll have insights into various parts of the Torah, but in lav, and if he doesn't, he's not able to reveal the seichel ha'emes in each object. Yitzamtzem sichlo v'yismach al emunah. When he realizes that he cannot comprehend everything, and the mitzvahs sometimes defy rational explanation. So at that point, he's got to rely on emunah. He has to have a total faith that what God is creating here is good. It's challenging, but it has an ultimate supreme goal. Aval kol panim, afilu kol zman she'ein mevin heitev seichel sheyesh b'chol davar, even if he doesn't see the seichel, the elokus that's inherent in every object, nevertheless hu ma'amin be'emunah shebe'emes yesh bo chachma v'seichel gadol. That if he can't reveal the seichel, the great seichel that's inherent in each object, he has to know and believe that everything has a great chachma and seichel. Ki kula b'chachma sisa. Akol b'shvil liskarev al yedei zel Hashem yisbarach lahakros yisbarach. Moshe kol Paul Hashem. He gets to the boundary beyond which he cannot comprehend the world as Seichel Emes would have him comprehend the world. But at that point, he believes with Emunah that even though he cannot comprehend and reveal the Chachma that's inherent in every object, he has an emunah that there is a chachma, there is a seichel gadol in every object, even if he can't comprehend it. Ki kulam b'chachma sisa. Ki zeh ikar b'chira ma she'ein mevinim v'roim hechachma v'aseichel shu achius alokus sheyesh b'chol davar. the challenge that we face is because it's not obvious to us. We don't see in front of our eyes or understand with our mind that every single davar, every single object, every single experience and encounter has a chachma gedola, a seichel bechiras elokus. And that's inherent in every object, but he can't see it. He believes it because he has emunah. Whatever level we can hope and aspire to achieve in comprehending seichel gadol, the seichel ha'emes that's inherent in every object, can only be achieved through avoda v'yigia rabba b'torah u'v'mitzvos. Emphasize the word yigia. He serves Hashem with Torah and mitzvos b'yigia. Nothing has to come easy. It's b'yigia. Hard work, toil. So only after the avoda, the yigia rabba b'torah b'mitzvos, only then can he reveal the seichel ha'emes that's inherent in every object. Even after his Torah, his mitzvos, his avoda, and his yigia, he still must admit that he cannot comprehend in this world the ultimate truth. But that's going to happen li'osid lava at the time of Mashiach. As the pasuk says in Koheles, Gam es ha'olam nasan b'libam mibli asher yimtza ha'adam es maaseh asher asa Elokim mirosh v'yad sof. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the context here, Rabbi Nassan, that we studied with regard to Misa, whole new perception of death. And I'm fast forwarding to a paragraph that starts with Kain Yisrael Nikroim Kulam Tzadikim. Right, the pasuk says Amech Kulam Tzadikim. Heim b'misasam Kruyim Chayim Kvoshom Rabbeinu Brachas Lam Yudches Tzadik Tzadikim b'misasam Kruyim Chayim. How can it be that after death they're considered Chayim? Ki kol avodoseinu v'giyoseinu b'shvil hatachlis shuhu liachar misa k'shenizkeh loku b'tchias hamesim. So the ultimate goal that's inherent in our avoda is lokum b'tchias hamesim. Sha'oz yeh ikur kibul schar. The reward is granted to us after Tchias HaMesim. So this is l'macha. Ki oz nasig b'shlemus kol ma she'ovar b'zeh ha'olam. The oz neda v'novin heitev haseichel shel kol davar shezeh yeh hakibul schar. Our schar will be to understand everything that happened in this world. To understand how everything is called Pol Hashem L'Maneu, everything is part of the divine plan. Al Kain Yisrael Chayim Liolam. They will be resurrected, they'll live eternally. Ki Makashrim Achitzonius El Apnimius Tomid Al Yidei HaTorah Shehi Amuna Shezei Ikar Chayim. Ki Ikar Chayim Hu is Chabrus Achitzonius Im Apnimius Shein B'chinas Haguf Ve'anefesh. And now we're going to talk about death. Not a very pleasant topic. It's the title, the subject of our parsha this week, Parshas Chukas. But we have a Hasidish approach with a different perspective on death. Ki onim aminim shafilu yachar misa sha'az hapnimius nifrad me'achitzonius. The neshama leaves the guf. Right? I know a nefesh me'aguf. That's what Misa is all about. But Eina period gomer liol. There's something that's called lefisha on a temporary basis. Death is only temporary. The period that separates the guf and the neshama with death is not permanent. Eino period gomer. There's something left in the guf even after death. Gambies misa, kodam atchia, nishar ba guf kista de chiyusa. Kista is a small measurement. Now look at this next sentence. Adarava. Ikar chibur apnimius machitzonius tahainu hanefesh maguf hu dafka al yidei misa. Oh, that's pretty way out. That the chibur of pnimius and chitzonius is misa? What are you talking about? Misa, you just established a minute ago, is the ultimate period between the pnimius and the chitzonius. And now you're telling me, well, that's the opposite of the chibur of pnimius and chitzonius, the nefesh from a guf, that we are trying to achieve. See, the solution to the paradox of Misa is the resurrection of the body at the time of Tchiyas HaMesim. Once again, we'll have nefesh restored to the guf. Al kain tov ma'od, vayar l'kim es kol shosavine tov ma'od, zeh Misa, zeh moves. So how can we say that Tov Modzu are Misa when Misa is the ultimate separation between the Pnimius and the Chitzonius? How can... And the answer is Ki Misa li Yisrael aksherim hugak kemo shena. It's like sleeping. Shal yidezen is chadesh hanefesh v'nischazek yosef. So imagine after death, the nefesh renews itself and is even stronger than it ever was. This is after death. Every boker, every day is a new entity. And Bisa is the exact opposite. The body somehow restricts us. And therefore we need Misa, after which Yashuv be offer ala oretz, the oz yizdake haguf the offer, the body itself will be purified. Vaneshama tischadish lamalo. Achaliacha atchia yakum beguf v'nefesh. When the person is resurrected, it'll be guf v'nefesh. Zach. Mechubarim li'olam. The oz yikablu scharim b'shleimus. Oz yeikar achayim shem chayim nitzchim v'noz oz nasik chibur chitzonius em apnimius b'shleimus shezeh ikar achayim shel kol dom. Okay, then Rabbi Osai, this is where we're going to end for tonight. There's a lot more here, but we've got to strengthen ourselves, to recharge our batteries, so to speak, metaphorically. So thank you for joining me. And if I don't speak to you before Shabbos, have a great Shabbos.